To Alex Lazar, the representative to Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi, as he will read a statement written by her.
Good morning. This week, Congresswoman Pelosi had the honor of meeting with several of our friends from the Tibetan community over in her office. and was able to listen to their concerns and really share with them the story of her journey to Tibet. And today, in the newspaper USA Today, Congresswoman Pelosi wrote an op-ed along with Congressman Jim McGovern. And that's what I will be reading today. So this is in today's USA Today newspaper. And the title of the op-ed is, "The U.S. should speak out for Tibet." And she writes, "Last November, we led the first delegation of the United States members of Congress the Chinese government has allowed to visit Tibet in more than 8 years. As we mark today's anniversary of the 1959 uprising in Tibet, the deteriorating human rights situation throughout China is deeply troubling. However, our trip has led us to believe there is a narrow but real opportunity to encourage the Chinese government to re-evaluate its policy towards Tibet. For decades, China has severely limited foreign officials and journalists' access to the Tibetan plateau. Travel to Tibet was further curtailed following the Chinese crackdown on peaceful Tibetan protesters in 2008. And the Chinese government intensified crackdowns both immediately before and after our visit. From the moment we landed, it was evident that the Chinese authorities wanted to present a sanitized version of Tibet. In Lhasa, the authorities attempted to control what we could see, whom we could speak to, and where we could go. Nevertheless, our delegation had the rare chance to walk through the streets and visit the historic palace, temple, and monastery as representatives of the United States government. Despite the efforts of our handlers, we were able to see beyond the facade. China's harsh policies in Tibet are clearly mirrored in the prejudices and misconceptions of the past. In our conversations with senior Chinese officials, we were saddened by the disrespect expressed towards Tibet's unique and precious cultural, linguistic, and religious heritage. Not to mention the government's scorn for His Holiness the Dalai Lama. To make progress on the significant issues between China and Tibet, the Chinese government must set aside its outmoded attitudes towards the Tibetan people and explore the possibility of a new dialogue. Engagement with the Dalai Lama is key for designing a future for Tibet that allows for modernization while protecting and advancing Tibetan culture, language, religion, and way of life. We believe there's an opportunity for a respectful, good faith, high-level dialogue between Chinese officials and the Dalai Lama on resolving outstanding issues regarding Tibetan autonomy and the treatment of Tibetans outside of the Tibetan Autonomous Region. During our visit, many Chinese officials who spoke with us encouraged more Americans to travel to Tibet and to China. Those statements should be honored with actions. Lifting restrictions on U.S. diplomats, members of Congress, journalists, and others interested in the region. The U.S. should be allowed to establish a consular office in Lhasa in order to serve these Americans traveling to the Tibetan plateau. China should not fear greater openness and engagement in Tibet. The United States must emphasize this idea at the highest levels. Sadly, The Chinese government is showing increasing hostility towards all forms of peaceful dissent throughout China by using arbitrary detention, arrest, and forced disappearance of hundreds of lawyers, paralegals, law firm staff, human rights defenders, and other civil society activists in Beijing. New restrictions on freedom of expression have been enacted, especially on the internet, in the media, and in universities. The disappearance of several booksellers and publishers from Hong Kong indicates a widening crackdown by Chinese authorities against civil society everywhere. The Chinese government has succeeded at marginalizing the discussion of great human rights abuses in too many international forums and interactions. The democracy and human rights activists that we met with in China pleaded for us, for the United States, to be more openly and directly engaged in these issues. Advancing human rights is a fundamental to our national values and our national security. It must be a prominent part of our conversations with the Chinese government at every level. Our country has a responsibility to speak out in support of human rights in Tibet and elsewhere in China. If freedom-loving people do not speak out for human rights in China because of our commercial interests, then we lose our moral authority to talk about it in any other place in the world. It's been an honor joining with you this morning. Thank you.
Winds of karma are blowing through everything. Ain't nothing that you and I can do. It's the way that we're creating everything. Future's made of all the things you do. Sometimes all I wanna do is get away, hide away from everything that's true.
Human rights in Tibet! Human rights in Tibet! Cultural freedom in Tibet! Cultural freedom in Tibet! Language freedom in Tibet!
Language freedom in Tibet!
Language freedom in Tibet!
Language freedom in Tibet!
No less! No less! No less! Stop the genocide! Stop the genocide in Tibet!
Stop the genocide in Tibet!
Stop the killing in Tibet!
Stop the killing in Tibet!
China lost Tibetan dogs!
China lies Tibetan dogs!
China lost Tibetan dogs!
China lies Tibetan dogs!
Stop the killing in Tibet! Defend the prisoners now!
Release the prisoners now!
Cultural freedom in Tibet!
Culture freedom in Tibet!
Cultural freedom in Tibet!
Culture freedom in Tibet!
China is guilty!
Guilty of genocide!
China is guilty!
Guilty of genocide!
China is guilty!
Guilty of genocide!
China lost Tibetan dogs!
China lies Tibetan dogs!
China lost Tibetan dogs!
China lies Tibetan dogs!
China lost Tibetan dogs!
China lies Tibetan dogs!
Human rights in Tibet!
Human rights in Tibet!
Cultural freedom in Tibet!
Culture freedom in Tibet! Religious freedom in Tibet!
China lost Tibetan dogs! Stop the killing in Tibet! Stop the killing in Tibet! Stop the killing in Tibet! Human rights in Tibet! Human rights in Tibet! Human rights in Tibet!
Human rights in Tibet!
Stop the genocide in Tibet! Stop the genocide in Tibet! Stop the genocide in Tibet!
Rights in Tibet! Free Tibet! Free Tibet!
Social freedom needs to break. Labor freedom needs to break. No justice, no peace. No more Chinese government. People will be free. People will be free. We will never give up. We will never give up. People will be free. You can't pronounce what's Tibetan. Shame on Chinese government. Shame on Chinese government. China lost, Tibetan gone. Human rights needs to go. Human rights needs to go. Social freedom needs to go. Shame on Chinese government. Shame on Chinese government. Social freedom needs to go. Language freedom needs to go. Language freedom needs to go. Stop the contact needs to go. Stop the contact needs to go. Stop the contact. Wake up, United Nations. Wake up, United Nations. Wake up, United Nations. China out of Tibet now. China out of Tibet now. China out of Tibet now. Belongs to Tibetans. Tibet belongs to Tibetans. Tibet belongs to Tibetans. Tibet belongs to Tibetans. Go back China. Go back China. Go back China. Go back China. China is the killer. Shame on killers. China is the liar. Shame on liars. Shame on killers. Shame on liars. Shame on liars. China lies to both sides. China lies to both sides. China. Run. We liars! Shame on liars! Shame on killers! Shame on killers! Shame on liars! Shame on killers! Shame on killers! Shame on liars! Shame on liars! Shame on killers! Shame on killers! Shame on liars! Shame on liars! Shame on killers! Shame on killers! Shame on liars! Shame on liars! Shame on killers! Shame on killers! Shame on liars! Shame on liars! Shame on killers! Shame on killers! Shame on liars! Shame on killers! Shame on killers! Shame on liars! Shame on liars! Shame on killers! Shame on killers! China, go back! China, go back! Go back, China! Go back, China! China, go back! China, go back! Go back, China! Go back, China! China, China! Out! China, China! Out! China, China! Out! China, China! Out!
Thank you everyone for being here. Today, I want to thank the non-Tibetans who are here. You have much warmer places and drier places to be, I'm sure, but you chose to be with us, with the Tibetan people. And today, being the 57th anniversary of the Tibetan National Uprising Day, we all stand here, Tibetans and Tibetan supporters, to remind the Chinese Communist Party that we, the people of Tibet, and Tibet supporters worldwide, will never I say this again, will never give up on our brothers and sisters in Tibet. We will sacrifice everything, but we will not sacrifice our freedom. The Chinese government claimed that it liberated Tibet and touts the millions of dollars it invested in Tibet to develop it. Almost 60 years later, what has the Chinese government to show for all their claims to bring liberation and modernization to Tibet? I'll tell you what they're showing. Militarization of the world's highest plateau, diversions and bombing of major river sources, mining of sacred mountains, deforestation and raping of what was once among the world's most pristine landscapes, numerous protests from monks, nuns, lay Tibetans, young and old, risking their lives to voice the oppressive policies of the Chinese Communist Party. A total of 151 self-immolations by nuns, monks, lay Tibetans inside and outside Tibet. Most recently, 18-year-old monk Kesa Wangdu in Tibet and 16-year-old Dorjit Singh in India, using their bodies to alert the world of the severity of the oppression in Tibet. And an international community of world leaders and public supporters who see through the lies of the communist Chinese government and put their support and reverence behind our leader, the man who calls himself a simple monk. But we all know that he is way beyond just a simple monk. He is a Nobel Peace Laureate. He is the winner of many prestigious awards worldwide. And don't be fooled by that simple red robe, because he is far more powerful than the 1.2 billion Chinese that we are against. Ask the Chinese government, where is the liberation in Tibet? As for material development, the roads, the highways, the buildings in Tibet, we know who they're benefiting. They benefit the Han Chinese. They do not benefit the majority of the Tibetans. Don't be fooled by what you see on the surface. Look deep. Above all, the Chinese government and its systematic efforts to transform Tibet into yet another Chinese city, just with much more military presence, undercover secret police, and surveillance cameras. That's who the development is benefiting. The irony, and this I say to the Chinese people, the irony is that China is not free. So the Chinese people, I say, wake up and speak up. Your rights as Chinese citizens are also at risk under the repressive policy of Xi Jinping's government. Tibetans are not your enemies. Your government is your enemy. So long as our culture, so long as our rights, so long as our liberties are not respected by the Chinese government, we, the Tibetan people, and our international supporters will ensure that Tibet will always be a barrier to what a China specialist, Professor David Sandberg, professor at George Washington University, noted, that China's primary craving is to be strong and respected in the world. So let's ask the world, what is strength? What actions lead to respect? So So I'm going to ask a few questions, and I ask my Tibetan brothers and sisters and supporters to answer the question sincerely. So here's the number one question. Is it a sign of strength when a nation of 1.2 billion with one of the largest military forces in the world imposes its governance on the people of less than 6 million who have no military force and resist through non-violence? Is that strength?
Yes!
You got that right. And I'm sorry, sorry, the weather. Well, there you go. That's not strength. Thank you. Is it a sign of strength when a country that avows to be atheist insists on naming the reincarnation of Tibetan spiritual leaders and arrests and disappears the reincarnate child chosen by Tibetan Buddhists?
No!
Come on, I want to hear. Is it a strength?
No!
Is it a sign of strength when China arrests, jails, and tortures Tibetan monks and nuns for expressing their disagreements with China's policy in Tibet?
No!
Is it a sign of strength when China prohibits Tibetan Buddhists from owning and displaying pictures of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, a Nobel Peace Laureate, on their altars?
No!
Is it a strength?
No!
Wake up! Speak up! Is it a strength when China insists on forcing Tibetan nomads off their ancestral lands and resettle them in cities without their consent?
No!
Is it a sign of strength when China, in its own territory, arrests lawyers who defend their people's right to free speech?
No!
And finally, is it a strength of China when China instructs, as it has done just last week, its journalists and media outlets to only broadcast messages which support government policies?
No!
So I ask you, how can China expect to be seen as a nation of strength? And how does it expect to garner international respect when it disrespects the people and its own people that violate in ways that violate basic human rights? Despite China's immense economic influence in the world, the Chinese government and its leaders have far less, and I repeat, far less moral authority and receive nowhere near the kind of respect in the global community like His Holiness the Dalai Lama garners whenever and wherever he travels. It is high time for China's leadership to recognize that it is on a course of self-destruction, as no repressive government has been tolerated in the long run by its people. So I say in the words of Professor Sambal, the end game of Chinese communist rule has now begun. His Holiness and the Tibetan government have long extended an offer of a middle path that would mutually benefit the Chinese and the Tibetans, and that would be seen as the world community is accepted by China as a groundbreaking turning point in China's quest for global respect and power. It would be hailed as a success of non-violent negotiations and would send a powerful message to people around the world that non-violent resistance will lead to successful outcomes. In a world that is plagued by terrorist attacks and suicide bombers that disrupt and frighten people, such a success would be a game changer and would garner China tremendous respect around the world. I therefore call upon the Chinese government today to accept the peace offer of the Tibetan people as presented by His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan government in exile. Chinese government must realize that His Holiness the Dalai Lama is their friend and not their foe. Yet, it is important for the Chinese government to understand that no people has infinite patience and that China will only have itself to blame when the struggle for Tibet takes a violent turn. Finally, I want to remind, in the words of a Chinese professor, Ming Xinpei from Claremont University, that no one-party system is sustainable because there will be political decay and economic stagnation. No autocratic government has survived. Resisting political reforms, embracing repression for China is an acceleration of the communist people's collapse. Free Tibet now!
Free Tibet now!
Free Tibet now!
Free Tibet now!
Long live!
Dalai Lama!
Long live!
Dalai Lama!
China out of!
Tibet now!
China out of!
Tibet now!
You know, the last thing I want to say is that China has just announced that they will be damming hundreds of rivers in Tibet that will impact billions of people across Asia. So I want to say a new slogan: Damn China, not Tibet! Damn China, not Tibet! Damn China, not Tibet! Damn China, not Tibet! Thank you.
那么就学了，举动国家，我就5年，给你陪hamso chewe jesu，陪那了，给对吧，对吗？龙珠，真不破，学吧，学嘛，老是我忙不起中央呢，给你中央了，朝面头当当，绝对上面当，这个建议。 회기 희수 순교, 회기 고려 순교토로 내주변에 망고지 종안하사 다음에 가시 종안하는 대동시를 가시 종안에 맞춰내 너 가시 제랑 대동시를 제가 넘어서 제 모두 바다 페라 저거 전수 망고지 저거 망고지 개력이 수요에 대남 예제 강포여가 강전주 종강도 주여가 개체도 넘어서라 아주 변함의 예배 저바 정화 길이 아니 여기 그럼 넘어서라 마슈에 아니
My name is Pangri Singro Rinpoche. I ran an orphanage in Lhasa with my wife, Nima Kirtan. We were very well respected for our service to community. Me, my wife, and a large number of people connected to the orphanage were arrested and charged with attempting to split the country. The orphanage itself was declared illegal organization and closed, leaving the children aged between 2 months and 12 years without a home. We are serving a 19-year prison time.
My name is Kimbo Kotsu. I was 38 years old when Chinese police detained me on December 23rd. I am a prominent Tibetan abroad and communist leader involved in local effort to promote and protect our Tibetan language, culture and religion. I am sentenced to 2.5 years of imprisonment and charged for harboring criminal. Currently, I am extremely unwell with problems in my liver and lungs. Doctors and family members were denied to visit me. My lawyers have not been given in official court documents detailing the evidence against me. And due to the secrecy of the trial and the lack of access, it has been difficult for people to obtain reliable information about my cases and records. I am Salam Chadar. I am a monk. I am 22 when Chinese police arrested me on December 2012 and sentenced me to 4 years in prison. My actual charges are unknown, but I was suspected to have been connected with the Tibetan flag raising incident. My name is Tibetan well-known figure in Gaza. I'm 40 years old. I was jailed in July 2013 and sentenced to be 4 years in prison. I was arrested for helping to organize a concert called Calling the Authorities in Gaza for singing a song that was Tibetan, which included lyrics like Tibetan. We must practice routine and spoken Tibetan language. It's our duty. We must unite. All three provinces must unite, following the idea of unity Tibetan. I am Galki Tupakel, 23 years. I am a prominent writer and author of Devil. Great to meet you. I have been a teacher for more than 10 years in Selkirk, Council. They raided my house without a warrant and arrested me on February 15, 2012. My name is Jimmy Chokinima. Many of you know also me as 11 Pension Lama. I was only 6 years when Chinese government adopted me as 17 May 1995 with my family. It was just 3 days after His Holiness the Dalai Lama announced me as the reincarnated Pension Lama. United Nations has recognized me as the youngest political prisoner. It has been 21 years since my adoption has existed, still kept away from my people. My name is Wong Du. I work for an international public health NGO. I'm a former project officer of the HIV/AIDS program in Lhasa, run by the Australian Brunette Institute. I'm a former Jokang Mon from Dichen Township, Takse County. I served 8 years in prison of detention on March 8, 1989. I was much later again detained on March 14, 2008 for sharing and attempted to share information about the situation in Tibet and collecting intelligence concerning the security and interest of the state and providing it to the Dalai Lama. Prior to and following the March 14 incident, I am given a live interview.
I am Hamotya. I am a primary school teacher. On January 2008, I was arrested and kept in a detention center for 2 years and then later sentenced for 15 years in prison. I was arrested due to involvement in political movements and I was accused of endangering state security. Presently, no one knows where I am at and in what condition I am in.
My name is Diti Children. I'm a retired medical doctor. I was 54 years old when sentenced to 15 years in prison for allegedly providing intelligence and information harmful to the security and interests of the state to the Dalai Security Department. I was arrested without valid charges during a peaceful protest by Tibetans in Lhasa in March 2008.
My name is Druklo. People know me by my pen name Shotang. I'm 32 years old. I'm a writer and a blogger. I was arrested on February 17, 2016 for leading a student protest, writing essays that were allegedly claimed to be disturbing social stability. And I was suspected to have had contact with the separatists. I'm being sentenced to 3 years in prison.
I am Migmar Dondok in my 30s. I'm a social worker. I work for an NGO doing community development work. I'm originally from Dindri in Shigatse. I speak fluent English and used to work as a tour guide. I'm in prison for 14 years for collecting intelligence concerning the security and interests of the state and providing it to the Dalai Lama prior to and following the March 14th incident.
Oh,
Committee 24 for number 2, also committee for number 2, 아니, 까마치기랑 아주 들으나. 그렇죠. 디젤라, 이만으로 교회인 디젤하면 저기 퍼포먼스로 아니면 저기 굉장히 좋을 수 있는 수준.
손 떼는 주님아 주님은 의미 기도돌이 기도가 주되야 생수는 장인도 당신의 보도 사랑이 하사 보야 니들을 베비네 계시를 나누니 이불을 베비네 계시를 나누니 로쇼 every time I 로쇼 every time I 로쇼 야이 마사스고 세미시의 재미 미리고 담미요 아저씨의 바위 야이 마사스고 세미시의 재미 미리고 담미요 사미도 남자야 그여자 야미모 사미도 로쇼 every time I 로쇼 every time I 로쇼 every time I
민재나 우리 교대관 쪽이 동진한 인근 뜰시어라고 원하는 게
Let's go!
kuma prekigabda mini ki dewana jola chingi le decho chebe kuzo lo jo nangge geje bawo bawo nam baba kulu mise nangge gi shije bawo bawo yonga nana ne de kuzi nana ne de kuzi jede shugyu mase shulu nami puje namdang geshu gi tse to kato nami gi wona ne de geje bawo bawo toshi nangge gezo gi dente yongge towa ni to dang lusu longjo chegyu rawa me de shilu puje yongla senso samye kyapyota tusengen ge shugyu iri imoni chilo chikdo guje ngorju nago bawa sumi tse chuyin kanje chujum bawo bawo chida tume pegi geza nasa shumame de nyingdo luo tongge gi kone logyu gi dewan yega gi uti sunjo le kwanzu cho kote chilo te basho ko langzi yama tune chigyu gi pega kyangde geshunga kogyu da yarab gi kanjimbe laga da nindu gi ngesho logyu langshin gi tusi kirjeshi chayoba wanzo choge ge langcho dang chega tenge gento dole sunju peme gelangi nimo jiden chegeba mase kaste yeje tunda choi tengyunto prezi tani usu changde wanzo logyu gi dende dang nebe nyente pawo pamo shune gi nindo gyun dang chidi gi tengyo gegub gi logyu kodok dong gebe tengyu dang enjo shugyu yin 고급 대규네 저기 시고 편하게 내가 못하지 신된 북도 도시니까 실리 편다서 저기 세상의 동네기 링당 계급 기당왕보다 소치 최완의 탑재기 여기 세토시 소리를 먼저 생존도 여러분이 남네 코로나에 계지 운동기 띵 거진 제도 제대로 대전 탑재도 원래 긴구시에 셰는 교배 그라 가비의 대규 수교당 첫째 디로스 시주인 도것 상주다 마제의 도량 먼저 톱당당 개원 롱스 최규 하장 결체신 번의 저규인 디가 그렇게 shumen인 쪽 인연에 양 계속이 별랑 당규 참조 마체고 그랑제 빠소 대규 참조 저규 민관 세주 제신유 다대기 고급 디규네 자가 shum만 후당 계지 보병카 내기 대변랑기 시주당
I don't speak to puppy.
다들 대기업 체면 나라는 우리 지난 공식 경유 체부 초기 최대 땡땡이 개우 담반 남 구시 샤베 계제 회담직이 된다스는 new 경유 시제 lanzo 용배 문제는 제 신호는서 지금 이 균형간에 별로 이동 십시에 좀 치료 이동 주로 나왔을 때 제일 중요한 부지나